Welcome students. In this video we're gonna learn how to find the inverse of the function f of x equals the square root of x. We're gonna find the domain of the function. We're gonna find domain and range of the function and domain and range of the inverse. So let's start by finding the inverse. As I've done it in a previous video, what you have to do is you have to let f of x equals y, and then you leave the other side by itself. Now you solve for x. The way you solve for x on this case is by squaring both sides. So you're left with y squared equals x squared. Equals x, I'm sorry. Equals x. And then the final step is just to switch x and y. So it would be y equals x squared. Remember that the range of f of x, so this is the inverse. So this one is equal to f inverse. So remember that this one contains the codomain of the domain of the inverse is the codomain of the function. So let's find the domain of the function. So f of x, remember what the numbers that x can be in the we're talking about reals right now, so it can be 0 or anything above. So that means that the domain of this function has to be any x that is x greater than or equal to 0. And the range, so if I plug in 0, I get 0. So anything greater than 0 is part of the range. X greater than 0. Not x greater than 0, actually. In this case, it would be, you can say y greater than 0, greater than or equal to 0. In other words, you can do like this. Has to be 0 or all the way to infinity. The same thing you can use for this one. This would be 0, infinity. Notice the inverse is follows a similar pattern, because the domain is restricted. So the domain is this one here. The range has to be domain has to be anything 0 to infinity. That's the domain of the inverse. So remember, these two are separate, and the range could be anything, the same thing, 0 to inverse, to 0 to infinity, I'm sorry, 0 to infinity. So, because we found an inverse, we can prove that it's an inverse. We've done it before in another video. But in this case, we're not going to do it. So we know that this is the inverse. In this case, all we have to do is just verify it. But we're not supposed to verify it this time. We know that this is the inverse because we solved it analytically. But I just wanted you to show you how to find the inverse, and then finding the domain and the range for each function. Thank you very much, students.